Hey everyone, it's Scott Hansen from NFL Red Zone reminding you to watch Sports Ballers, the podcast that gets you caught up on everything Washington sports and beyond.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Sports Ballers podcast. My name is Eric. Evan sounds frustrated already. We are off to a great start.
Fantastic start.
But how are you doing, Corey, since Evan is clearly dismayed or frustrated or something or other?
I'm good. I'm curious to hear Evan's thoughts.
It's probably Orioles related.
No, I'm not frustrated or dismayed. I was laughing at your intro because it sounded like the Drunk Riders podcast.
Oh, well, speaking of drunk riders, we will be talking about roller coasters again because that's what we do lately on the Sports Ballers podcast. It's featuring coasters. Evan and I had some more shenanigans to get to, but first we'll start in the NBA, as I am wont to do because that's what I like. I like the NBA. Latest bit of drama, or maybe the end of the drama for the time being, related to Kevin Durant, who has apparently decided to rescind or end his trade demand or request or whatever you want to call it with the Nets. Seemingly, he sat down with Joe Tsai and the powers that be with the Brooklyn Nets and decided just to hash it out, which to me seemed like the most logical move given the fact that Durant didn't have leverage. He clearly desired to play for a championship contender, but no team was going to be a championship contender after they dealt everything the Nets would require to flip Kevin Durant and the 4 years that he has on his contract. So the end result was, and I kind of said this back in July, just stay with the Nets, see what happens. I mean, they've still got Kyrie Irving under contract, and while that is certainly an unpredictable game, at the very least, the immediate complications that happened last year are no longer an issue given the fact that he is now allowed to play home games, and the vaccination issue has seemingly subsided from the NBA and American society in general. Whether you agree with that or not, that's your own thing, but as far as we know, Kyrie Irving will be allowed to play home games, so he'll be there for as many games as he decides to show up for. And they've still got Ben Simmons, who, has a war against working himself. But they've got other good pieces too. Seth Curry, Joe Harris, who missed most of last year with an ankle injury. He'll be back. He's a valuable role player. The Nets as a team have some talent, and it's not like that team can't have potential to make a deep run in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, there are drawbacks when playing with somebody like Kyrie Irving, given his history. Obviously, there are drawbacks both on and off the court when playing with somebody like Ben Simmons because of his history and his lack of skills in certain areas. And so while I don't necessarily see the Nets as a bona fide favorite to win the Eastern Conference, they certainly should be a force to be reckoned with if everybody stays healthy and doesn't hate each other or find some excuse not to show up to work. And that's really the best that Kevin Durant was going to do, while also not putting an unnecessary burden on his shoulders. I mean, anywhere he got traded, whether it was the Suns or the Celtics or the Heat or the Raptors, the expectation would be that that team would win whatever conference he was playing in, even if they had to gut their roster, even if they had to give up somebody as talented as a Devin Booker or a Scotty Barnes or a Jaylen Brown. The burden would be on Kevin Durant to deliver at least a finals appearance to that team, if not a title. And whereas with the Nets, if they don't win, sure, it's going to be disappointing. And when you're a superstar of Kevin Durant's caliber, the expectation is that you are going to be a team that can win a championship. At the very least, it's the team that you decided to build. You decided to come to this team and say, we're going to build this team around me. And however it goes, it's your team. And you can say it's your team. Whereas jumping to Jason Tatum's team, even though Kevin Durant's a better player, jumping to Devin Booker's team, even though Kevin Durant's a better player, that's a recipe for you better win or else. And we saw that with Golden State, where the Warriors almost had to win those titles in order to salvage their legacies. It didn't actually boost them because they were so overwhelmingly talented that if they didn't win, it would be the ultimate in underachieving. And Kevin Durant was the face of that. Here, he gets an opportunity to try to say, okay, I took this situation. It was ugly. I didn't like it at first, but maybe he can make a run. And if he does, that will add to whatever legacy he's chasing. And it sort of resembles the Kobe Bryant situation a little bit, because Kobe in 2007 requested a trade out of LA because he spent 3 years basically in the desert there with no real talent around him, playing with Kwame Brown and Smush Parker and a younger Lamar Odom. And he requested a trade. Ultimately, things settled down, and the Lakers decided to actually be a competent franchise, traded for Pau Gasol for a bag of beans, and ended up winning 3 straight Western Conferences and 2 titles. I'm not saying Kevin Durant's going to have that degree of success, but it's something that can be saved, right? Like, it's not a situation where you walked out on Golden State to go chase greener pastures in Brooklyn and then you failed mightily and then had to go hit the ejector seat immediately. No, go down with the ship at least and see what you can do, and people will give you a little bit more credit for that.
Do you think that it can be saved? So I missed exactly when it came in, but Alex Mayo just said they're their own worst enemy, and I'm assuming he's referring to the Nets. Do you think they actually can save this with Kevin Durant?
From a basketball perspective, I don't love it, but it's not impossible, right? Like, Ben Simmons has his issues. He's not reliable in the half court. He can't shoot. He's unwilling to shoot. He's unwilling at times to even try to finish around the rim because he's worried about getting fouled. As far as we know, all those issues have not been resolved, and that makes him a liability in the postseason. And then you consider the fact that both Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are good but not great offensive engines as far as being creators for teammates. Right? Those guys are score first. They don't really draw the same level of double teams while also being able to know how to pass out of them. Like, you can double Kevin Durant and rattle him. We saw the Boston Celtics do that. You can induce mistakes from Kyrie Irving because he's such a good ball handler that he feels like the best way to get out of any situation is to continue to dribble until the shot clock runs out. And if something goes wrong, whatever at that point. So there are some issues with playmaking on this team that I think could persist and cost them valuable offense. And I just don't see the rim protection here. I know Ben Simmons is a tremendous defender. He is one of the best on-ball defenders in the league, but he's never really been asked to play the role of a roaming rim protector like a Draymond Green, like a Rudy Gobert, like Joel Embiid. He's been asked to be more of a wing defender, perimeter defender, who certainly can play help defense, but they still lack that size in the paint. And so there are still weaknesses to be exploited. And then when we talk about all the other issues with this team being combustible, given Kyrie Irving's issues, given Ben Simmons' issues, given Kevin Durant's issues, I mean, we're talking about at least 2 players who are physically injury prone. Like, Kevin Durant gets hurt frequently at this point in his career. Kyrie Irving has a history of missing time due to injuries, among other things. And, of course, Ben Simmons has missed time just because he's Ben Simmons. So you've got 2 guys who won't show up because of physical issues and 2 guys who won't show up because of mental or emotional issues, and they happen to overlap each other because we're talking about 3-star players. So there are legitimate concerns with how good this team can come out of the gate, whether this will hold up, whether Kyrie Irving will even be on the roster. I mean, there's still talks about the Lakers being interested in trading for him. And if Kyrie's not there, as big of a pain in the ass as he is, they got no shot. So they really need all 3 of these guys, and none of the 3 are reliable. And even if they're present and accounted for, I still don't know if this is the best team in the Eastern Conference.
I know that it's not the best team in the Eastern Conference just because, like you said, these guys aren't reliable. I think they lack the mental toughness, to just get the job done in the postseason. Ben Simmons, we saw his lack of ability to play basketball for the past 2 years now. Kyrie Irving, we know he's a clown. He's become untethered from reality, to be honest.
He's reality. That's not a new thing.
Yeah. He is untethered from reality.
I feel like that exact verbiage has been used on this show before to describe Kyrie Irving.
Probably from me. Yeah.
I've certainly heard it before, yeah.
And then there's Kevin Durant, who's demanding a trade when he's got 4 years left on his deal. Like, they can't trade you. What are you even asking for a trade for, right? This is utterly ridiculous. All three of them. So the Nets are a complete clown organization. It's a train wreck that you can't turn your eyes away from. I'm over them. I hope they go 0-82.
And so the question you have to ask, though, from a pure basketball perspective, is the Nets got swept by the Celtics in the first round last year, but it was more competitive than a sweep normally is. I mean, they only lost by a combined 18 points, but they still lost all 4 games. And the question is Ben Simmons and potentially the reinsertion of Joe Harris into their rotation enough to overcome that, especially when you consider the fact that the Celtics are going to be better this year on paper, given the fact that they bolstered their bench with Danilo Gallinari, and they added Malcolm Brogdon, who's a legitimate ball handler, and you have to assume some level of growth from Jason Tatum and maybe even Jaylen Brown. Is this going to be good enough to beat that team, who looks like the premier team in the Eastern Conference, along with the Milwaukee Bucks? And the answer to that, to me, is absolutely not.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's kind of the point that I was going to jump in and make, is even if everything was to work out, right? Like, I'm completely with Evan. There's no reason to be confident in the Nets. But even if Kevin Durant, plays up to his ability and stays healthy, Kyrie Irving is available for 82 games and plays well, Ben Simmons, is available for 82 games and plays well.
Or any games.
Harris comes in and does his job. Like, even if all of that happens and the Nets are at their best, you can't convince me that they are definitely better or even definitely as good as the Celtics or the Bucks. Like, they still might be the number 3 team in that conference.
Yeah, there's issues here because a big part of the reason that series was quote-unquote more competitive than it looked was because the other guys on the Nets were shooting the lights out. And it wasn't just an issue of, Bruce Brown was wide open or Seth Curry was wide open. They were actually shooting above their heads, and they still got swept because Kevin Durant, frankly, wilted against that strong defense. And I don't know if that's going to get better. KD is going to be 34 this year. He's playing on that torn Achilles. It's noticeable that he's not as explosive and as quick to beat men off the dribble. He's become so much more reliant on his jump shot. And frankly, Jason Tatum showed that he can straight up guard Kevin Durant and block his shot. I had never seen somebody successfully block Kevin Durant's jump shot with significant frequency, but it happened multiple times in that short series. If that's the case, then Kevin Durant's going to have to find a new element to his game to unlock a playmaking aspect, and that's something that I've criticized him before on this podcast for. I said that this is a big part of the reason why he was such a beneficiary of playing with Russell Westbrook and later on Steph Curry, is because there was no burden to be the fulcrum of the offense. It was simply, you get open, you get to your spots, you hit shots, and you be great at what you do, and that was more than enough to be a contender. Here, Kyrie Irving isn't a guy that you could rely upon to say, okay, move the ball, get it to the right spots, run the right plays, because Kyrie Irving's nature is dribble, dribble, dribble until I get an open shot. And to his credit, he's great at that too, but that's not team basketball, and that's not what you need, especially when you're going to have struggles on defense just because of the personnel you have out there.
Well, the thing is, like, team basketball is what helps Kevin Durant to be great, and without that, if that's not going to be the way your point guard plays, then you are not utilizing Kevin Durant to his max potential.
Yeah, there's a misunderstanding about Kevin Durant. They think of him as a walking bucket, but he's actually a tremendous off-ball player. He's got skills that need to be tapped into by having a guy that can reliably get him the ball in his spots when he doesn't have it. He doesn't just dribble to it. He doesn't just stroll up the court himself and play point guard. He's really good at just running off of short screens, catching and shooting inside the elbow, things like that.
He finds those little openings to find space for himself. Like, he is fantastic at that, but you have to have somebody who is looking for him to do that,
right? And
who can get him the ball, and that's not really what Kyrie does.
No, Kyrie's a capable passer, but he's not. That's not his nature. And when you have Kevin Durant on your team, you kind of need somebody that either can create the openings just by running around like Steph Curry did, or find somebody that is a ready and willing passer, which, to Russell Westbrook's credit, he often was. He was ready to get the ball to the guys in their spots, whereas Kyrie Irving is definitely more of a scoring-focused point guard, which is fine, but it requires a different skill mix to make that engine work to full efficiency. So we'll move off the NBA because that's all we've got. Naturally, it's August, so let's talk a little baseball, or do we have any? We don't have any football, do we?
No, because we're going to get into a lot of football over the next 2 weeks. We got fantasy football, our fantasy football preview show next week. So, if you want to try and take our knowledge, fantasy football, and use it, next week is the show to listen to. If you're in our league, you can listen and find out who we're targeting and maybe get a leg up on us.
I do have a football thing.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So, from the Ravens, Tyler Linderbaum, the center, returned to practice today. And then Gus Edwards was put on the physically unable to perform list, and he's going to miss at least the first 4 games of the season. He tore one of his ACLs in practice about a year ago now.
Yeah, he's had some complications with the recovery. So, but we'll get into more real football 2 weeks from today when we do our NFL season preview show.
And then the season kicks off.
And then the season kicks off the day after that. Yeah, we take you right up to the season.
Yeah, that show's going to be a marathon.
Yes, it is.
Got a lot
It is
to
every
get
year,
through.
but it's a great show every year.
All of our shows are marathons.
Yes, even the ones that aren't, they still take
Yeah.
longer than they probably should.
I'd prefer
Because
to
we
say
do
that-
stuff like this,
I prefer to call most of them half marathons.
Fair enough.
Otherwise, we have to
okay.
call the NFL show a double marathon.
Slap a 13.1 on the back of your car for these shows.
You
So-
run a half marathon? No, I'm on a half marathon.
So let's do some baseball. Let's talk some A's, hon. The Orioles are 3-3 since our last show. They've been kind of up and down. They did take 2 out of 3 from the Boston Red Sox, and Evan and I were in the barn Friday night for an absolute gong show. The Orioles won 15-10. Yeah, that was a roller coaster. Something we talk about those two, but the Orioles were up 10-4 at one point, and then Keegan Aiken comes into the game. And with no help from Rougned Odor, who booted a ball, or actually he didn't boot the ball, he threw the ball at Ryan Mountcastle's feet on a routine ground ball. He gives up
Like
5
he's Donovan
runs.
McNabb or something.
He gives up 5 runs, none earned just because of the error, but if we're being honest, most of them should have been earned because he was pitching like crap. So the Orioles were only up 10-9, and then they come back and score like 5 more runs. And, no lead is safe, especially when you've already given up 10 runs, but the Orioles managed to hold it down and get the win. 5 home runs hit by the Birds that game, so a nice offensive explosion for the Orioles. But Evan wrote down, probably in frustration related to today and other games, why is Rougned
And the rest
Odor
of the
still
year.
here? And the answer is, I don't know, especially given today. That this is supposed to be, or was rumored to be, the day that Gunnar Henderson got called up for the Orioles. He ain't here. He's still playing for Norfolk, so
And
maybe
Rougned
tomorrow.
Odor is still playing for the Baltimore Orioles.
He's playing third base today. He's played second base all year. They decided to get cute and move him to third because they've got Taron Vavra playing second, and Taron Vavra, he's a prospect. He's been pretty good.
We got him for Michael Givens from the Rockies
Evan's boy.
2 years ago.
Yeah, Evan loves Michael Givens. So anyway, Orioles been kind of not great, but given the fact that they're the Orioles and they were supposed to lose 100 games and they've already guaranteed that they won't do that, that's not too bad. But still definitely in the wild card chase, but a couple games back.
Yeah, they're 2.5 out. I mean, no, this team has no business being in this position currently. Just on paper, it's not a very good team. But they've been punching above their weight class, and it's just been a fun ride. So I'm just going to enjoy it. But it's frustrating, because they've been winning so much, and then all of a sudden they don't win as much. I know what they're capable of, and then when they don't do it, it's like, it's what could have been. Oh, the Ravens won again. The preseason game on completely changing the subject. The preseason game on Sunday night, they beat the Cardinals, so it's 22 consecutive preseason wins. Welcoming the Commanders to Baltimore on Saturday night. The Orioles, Rougned Odor, he's a bum. He can't play offense or defense. He's supposed to be a great clubhouse guy. And I'm like, well, just leave him in there then, right? Why does he need to be on the field? He doesn't need to come on the field. Yeah. Somebody's got to pick up the
gum and sunflower seeds.
Yeah, somebody's got to pick up the chewing tobacco chunks off the field after the game. You should do that. It was oh, it's unbelievable, right? Like people are like, well, Gunnar Henderson, he can't. What if he struggles when he first shows up? Well, Odor's been struggling since day one.
People asked that about Adley, and Adley went
Yeah,
through a very brief struggle and
yeah.
then came out of it pretty quickly and has been amazing.
Yes,
The best catcher in baseball this season.
Arguably, yeah.
certainly up there. So the Orioles are currently up 3-2 on the White Sox. Austin Voth gave up a 2-run homer in the first, but the Orioles answered with a 3-run dinger from Ryan Mountcastle. I was at Looney's watching the game right before I came over here, so that was pretty exciting. So Corey, what's going on with the Yankees?
The Yankees are 3-3 since our last show, so progress from what we had been doing for the past few months. In fact, yesterday's win against the Mets marked our first back-to-back wins of the month, and it is August 23rd. They're looking for another win tonight. It's currently 0-0. I forget what inning they're in, but it's no runs scored. I think they're at least in the fourth right now. Aaron Judge ended a 9-game home run drought. Got his 47th of the year in the third inning off of Max Scherzer last night. That helped the Yankees to the win. He and Andrew Benintendi were kind of the big bats in last night's game. Meanwhile, Jordan Montgomery pitched to Maddox, but he did not do it for the Yankees because the Yankees traded him at the deadline. He is with the St. Louis Cardinals. I picked him up for my fantasy team yesterday on a whim, and he wound up going 9 innings, gave up 1 hit, no runs, 7 strikeouts in 99 pitches.
Nice work.
Little update on your Yankees, Corey. It is the 4th inning, and they are up 1-0 because someone named Aaron Judge hit a home run.
48.
Perhaps you've heard of him.
That's another one from my lineup.
Yeah, and RBI number 104 on the season.
Off of Taiwan Walker, who I don't think I started today. I'm pretty sure in fact, I think I dropped him the other day.
Oh, okay.
Possibly a smart move, but it is only 1-0, so he's probably still getting some decent points.
Yeah, the Yankees, I feel like, because Evan and I have been consistently saying, are we sure the Yankees are going to win the AL East, especially given their struggles? But I feel like the fact that they beat the Blue Jays in that last game of that series to push their lead back to 8 games, whereas if they had lost that, they would have only been up 6 games. Now you're like, oh boy, this could be trouble. I feel like that was, obviously it's not over yet.
There's still plenty of season left. I mean, we've got more than a month of baseball left, and bigger leads have been blown in that amount of time. But that that head-to-head win, the extra basically 2-game lead that they now have in the division, you can't understate how important that is.
It would have been massive freakouts if they had lost that game and only been up 6 games on the Blue Jays, especially going into that Mets 2-game series where it looked like they're going to have to face Scherzer and DeGrom, but the Yankees actually beat Scherzer yesterday, and DeGrom got pushed back to pitch against LA.
Yeah.
And so they get Taiwan Walker instead, who's a little bit easier to manage for New York.
Yeah, the Mets have mostly seemed like started DeGrom every 6th game instead of every 5th right now, which is probably smart. Ease him back in.
They're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to
want him, for the playoffs, so they need to make sure that they keep him healthy and get him right.
For sure. So that's all we have for baseball, unless you got a fantasy update that you want to.
Well, our fantasy playoffs are officially set now. We do have this last week of the regular season, but I'm in, Evan is in, Sam Martin is in, and all 3 of us made the playoffs last year, and then Corey Fronton is in. Andrew Perez was in the playoffs last year. But I'm playing this week to try and lock up the number 1 seed in our playoffs. If I win, then I get that. If I lose, then I need Evan to win in order to get it, because then he and I would be tied for the number 1 seed, but I would have him on the head-to-head. If Sam beats Evan and I lose, then Sam is the number 1 seed. Sam and I played in the championship last year, and I won, and I am hoping to make it a two-peat.
We just call it a repeat here, but
A two-peat?
That's probably getting written down. Oh, jeez. Okay, well,
what?
Somehow that's the extent of our sports talk, at least as it relates to actual sports being played. But we do have some other things to discuss before we get on out of here in like maybe 40 minutes or something. I don't know. maybe an hour and 40 minutes. We could go on forever about this crap.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of you boys on this podcast are going to be calling games for DeMatha football. Corey has been doing that for a number of years now.
Yeah, this will be, I think, my either third or fourth year doing that.
And Corey has asked me if I wanted to participate, and given the fact that I have zero experience doing any type of broadcasting, I said sure. So, I was like, yeah, why not? I'm not going to turn down a challenge. So I've been watching a couple of the old games that Corey sent me, trying to get an idea or a feel for what was going on, grinding some tape. I will definitely need some rosters.
I'm gonna work on getting those this week, and but yeah, no, I mean, it's gonna be fun. So Mark Goodson, who used to be DeMatha's offensive coordinator, is currently the student activities coordinator at DeMatha. I took over the yearbook from him, good friend of mine. He is not available this year to do the games. Usually he'd be my partner in crime on those broadcasts, but he has some other obligations that are taking him away. So I asked Scott Sicko, who is one of our social studies teachers. He actually had a brief stint in the NFL playing tight end for the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, really?
Another good friend of mine. He actually taught the Serfois this summer that I participated in, the one I've told you guys about terrorism and extremism. That was a really fun course to take and learn about.
That doesn't sound fun at all.
But he also is not available to do the games.
And then you ask somebody else, and somebody else, and somebody else, and somebody else.
No, I mean, I did want to do my due diligence and try and see if there's anybody who's directly affiliated with the school currently to see if they'd be willing to do it. But nobody who really made sense, has that football knowledge, was available or came to mind. So, Eric and I, of course, have a really good rapport. We've been he hasn't done any live sports before, but we've been either podcasting or doing sports talk for the better part of a decade at this point. We have an extensive experience together with the Sports Ballers, with the All Sports crew, and the Football Freaks back when we were at the University of Maryland and shortly after that. And of course we're very good friends, so it just kind of made sense. And he knows football. So I feel confident that whether he decides that he's going to do the play-by-play or he's going to do the color commentary, I think he's going to do just fine either way, and it'll be fun.
Not to mention our guest appearances on the Ash Backwards podcast.
Yeah. Although we never did that together. It was always just one of us. But, but still,
it felt really important being a featured guest. That was nice.
Yeah,
I think those podcasts are still saved on my computer.
I think I still have them in my Apple Podcast app.
Yeah, so I guess I was like the Mark Turgeon of announcing hires here, given the fact that there's 7 other candidates who are like, oh, sorry, can't do it. Oh, I guess I'll pick this guy. So bear with me as I jump into this brand new thing that I've never done before. But
yeah, so make sure follow DM Stags TV on YouTube, on Twitter. Our first broadcast will be next Friday evening. That's September 2nd. I believe at 7 p.m. DeMatha will be hosting Rock Creek Christian Academy from the Sports and Learning Complex in PG County, and we will be bringing that action live on YouTube.
Yeah, make sure you tune in so you can see how bad I am my first time. Just
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, do that. And
Are y'all going to be on camera or just, there's a fixed camera somewhere?
At the beginning and maybe a little bit at halftime, but mostly it'll be the camera on the field.
Yeah,
I'm still kind of working out the details, and we may not have that much up and running for the first game, because one of the issues that we're running into, not to be too long-winded on this, but because that Friday it's at the end of our very first week of school, and I've only had 3 days in class with my students at that point because we don't actually have class on Monday. That's the sophomore, junior, senior orientation. We have school on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
What do they need an orientation for? They've already been at the school at least a year.
We'll have school Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then we don't have school that Friday. So,
oh my goodness,
it's going to be a short week to try and get students out there to work the game and comfortable with the equipment. So I don't want to inundate them too heavily that early.
Go ahead and inundate them. I was inundated when I started over there. Oh my God. This big stack of books that weigh just as much as me that I had to read every day, carry them back and forth. Yeah, inundate them. That's that's the way to go. What's going on at that school? There's no class on the first day. Well, then why are they there?
We
Just have hot
always had the
dogs.
orientation too.
No, we had class and homework.
No, we had
Day
to go.
one.
If you skipped it, that's on you. We had to go to an orientation.
I remember an
I don't
orientation.
remember any orientation.
I remember that. But we
Yeah,
did.
that would be the day that you would get your agenda book and everything.
It was in
Agenda book.
2008, or not 2008. I'm sorry. 2000.
No, it was 2008. It was fall of 2008 for your senior year.
No, but I'm talking.
Okay.
Oh, you're talking
well,
about
I
that.
graduated in spring of '08.
Oh,
So
well, I only remember doing an orientation when I was a freshman.
Well, yeah, we had the freshman experience, but no, we had to go in for orientation after that too.
why?
I don't recall.
Because there's different expectations and stuff that they want to talk to the other classes about on a class level. Not to mention these days, students have forgotten how to be students after that year away from with COVID. Even last year may not have been enough for some students to really understand how to be in a school environment.
Can Father Damien not
You
yell at
you
people
just
anymore?
Need to continue to reinforce those
Shape up
things
real
with them
quick.
right now. And, try to be patient and coach
Patient.
them up.
That's different. What?
That's
I don't remember any of that. But okay. Patient.
Evan's getting a little back in my day, climbing up the,
Yeah.
walking to school
Patience.
uphill in the snow both ways.
We did have to go to school in the snow, and I showed up 2 hours late one time because it snowed and school wasn't canceled. Because the dumb people at the head of PG County were like, "Oh, it's supposed to snow a foot right during rush hour in the morning. School's gonna open on time." What? Unbelievable.
Well, we got some time to kill, so we're airing a few more grievances than usual here.
Apparently.
We'll move on.
How much time do we got?
Oh, it's we're only 32 minutes into this thing.
Yeah,
Normally,
we're going for a record here.
yeah, a record short, like a normal length podcast for most people.
Yeah.
This might be the, and we're spending half of it talking about stuff that isn't sports. So, how about that?
We will more than make up for it in the next 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, y'all better get gear up. Download this podcast and listen to it at work, on your way home, stuck in traffic. It's gonna take forever next couple of weeks. So enjoy the short one while it lasts. So another little bit of fun news from us. 2/3 of the sports ballers went to Altoona, Pennsylvania. Evan and I went up to Lakemont Park on Saturday after we went to the baseball game on Friday. And we went up to Lakemont Park, which features Leap the Dips, which is the oldest active roller coaster in the world. It's been
1902,
operating
right?
since 1902. And it's quite something. They also have Skyliner.
Was it good?
Depends on where you
It
were
was good
sitting.
in the front row.
So, all right, I guess I'll.
I thought usually it's better in the back row.
well,
What
not
happened?
not
Whoa,
when, not
it
when
was something in the back row.
not while the coaster is okay. So
In motion.
the ride was a 1x1 car. So one person in front, one person in the back. That was it. There was no train. It was
Oh.
just one car.
With two
and
people.
and the dude had to literally pull the thing off the brake run through the station onto the lift hill manually. There was no means of delivering it to the lift hill. And
It also had wooden brakes. Did you notice that?
yes, at wooden brakes, you had to pull the
Wait,
thing to stop the thing on
what?
the brake run. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's 1902. It's
From
old ass
1902.
ride.
You would think that they would have updated it or did something.
Well, another little feature is that this ride came and was established before the invention of the up wheel was a thing on roller coasters. So there was no way to keep the ride from staying on the tracks. It left the track at certain points. When you hit little dips, it would leave the track and bounce back.
It was perhaps leaping the dips.
Yes. So this made the ride quite interesting. So the first time we
And there were
rode
also
it,
no seat belts.
there's no seatbelts either.
How
yeah.
many fatalities has this roller coaster claimed since 1902?
I doubt any, because it's not very tall or fast.
Okay.
So
It would be quite something if you actually fell off the structure.
Still, no seat belts. It leaves the tracks.
Oh yeah,
Good
it was
God.
something else. So
with wood brakes.
so the first time we rode this ride, I rode in the back, Evan rode in the front, and so it's a pretty straightforward ride. It goes up a hill and then it kind of circles around and then it has little dips. And the first dip came about, and the back end of the car came up, and I slammed my tailbone so hard on the seat that it literally put me onto my feet after I hit the seat. And I was standing in the car, not voluntarily, just like almost as a defense mechanism because of what was going on. And I was standing up, and I was like, oh my God, I need to sit back down. Like I felt like a jockey on a horse, and I was just like, what is going on? That was just absolutely harrowing. And Evan's up from the front laughing, having a grand old time. And I'm like, okay, is he laughing at me because I'm having a horrible time back here, or is he actually having fun? And then this happened a couple more times, not that drastic, but continuously, ba-doom, 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 as the ride's going up and down and slamming back onto the track. And we get off of it, and everyone's like, I think we need to do that again. And I was like, okay, but you're sitting in the back this time. And, Evan was like, oh, I think he's overreacting to the back. No, I wasn't. And the front was a lot of fun because I wasn't getting thrown about. It was really cool. And then Evan just back there going, oh. And I'm like, yep, that's how it was. So, yeah.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, it was painful. Not quite Mind Eraser or Hypersonic XLC painful, but it was something. Can y'all hear me? You froze.
No, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was quite something. The first dip that we leaped, or I guess leapt. I screamed in pain, like a stuck pig or something. Like it was just, like, what was that? So yeah, glad to check that one off the list. It's, to call it a classic is an understatement, right? Like it's, I mean, there are old rides and then there's Leap the Dips, right? Like 1902. That's 10 years before Fenway Park opened. It's ancient. But it was fun. Just be sure to ride in the front row. I would absolutely love to ride in the front row, and then ride in the back row. No, thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, you don't always get a choice because, if you're there with somebody's got to sit in the back. But we also rode Skyliner, which is another old wooden roller coaster. Obviously not as old as Leap the Dips, but that one was interesting. I felt like that one, it looked older than it was because it's, not been painted in a while. Like, it looks like it would look pretty good, but it was very worn down looking. But it did feature some nice airtime on the first drop. I wasn't expecting that. And I was like, this is pretty fun. It got a little rough in the last couple of times we rode it. Evan and I were in the back. I mean, we got to choose where we sat because there was pretty much nobody there. But so we rode in the back, and we felt a little bit of roughness. And the last time we rode it, we said, maybe it'll be better in the front, and it was so much worse. Like when we rode in like the third car, it was, oh my God. I felt like, I described it to Evan, I felt like my ribs switched places on my rib cage. Like they shot across each other, and the entirety of my skeletal structure and my torso was just all over the place, like Picasso or something. I was like, that was horrible. I hated it. But, the other times we rode it was great. And, there were enough people on the ride also, to commiserate with. So we saw some of them at the ball game that we went to a little later. Like, hey, you were on the Skyliner. I was like, yeah, we were. And the lady was like, how's your back doing? I was like, could be better. So that was a fun little ride. And we didn't have an opportunity to get on the Little Leaper because it wasn't operational. That was the kiddie coaster that they have there, but it's down for the season. So instead, we played mini golf, and I took some cuts in the batting cage, and both of those were disasters. Evan and I were both awful. I beat Evan by 4 strokes on the first mini golf game, but neither one of us would have made the cut if there was a cut. I was 12 over the par they had set, and Evan was 16. I felt like they were pretty harsh with the par 2s and par 3s and stuff like that.
I'd be curious to play there. I'm usually like maybe a couple strokes over par.
when I play mini golf.
What?
Yeah, I'm buns.
Who
at
does
mini golf.
that? A couple strokes over? Oh my God. If the par is like 40, how are you getting a 42 or something? That's crazy.
I mean, I could ask how you're getting a 56.
Well, it's called being a shankopotamus. I don't know. Right? Like, Eric hit the ball in the water a couple times.
If,
And
there,
so I'm
if
like,
the
well,
par
look.
is 40, then you expect that there are people out there that could do it in 33, 34.
Yeah, like professional
haven't met
golfers.
any of those
I don't
people.
know, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Professional mini golfers, anyway.
I'm sure professional golfers would not be too bad at putting.
Yeah, but it's different putting. It's not. It's usually not like a straight line from the start to the end.
Yeah, but some of these were, and we still sucked. But yeah, it's the nature of the beast. And yeah, I got in the batting cage. Evan didn't want to because, according to him, nobody
Needs to see
that.
that. No.
So I got in there. They gave out tokens, kind of like the place up in Laurel that we've gone before.
Yeah.
And I got in there, and they gave me a helmet and a 34-inch bat, which I never swung a 34-inch bat when I was in high school. I always swung 32s or 33s, but doesn't matter.
Pretty sure my softball bats are 34s.
But are they 31 ounces?
I think 32 or 33 ounce.
I want to check that because I don't believe you.
I'll check later.
So anyway, I got in there and they had 4 pitching speed options, or actually technically 8. So they had 4 options for softball and 4 options for baseball. And so I went with baseball, and the top option for baseball was 70 miles per hour. So I was like, yeah, 70's not that fast. Hit that. And I quickly realized, well, it's 70 miles an hour, but the pitching machine's like 40 feet away. So, yeah. The first pitch comes in and just goes boom, hits off the back thing, and Evan was just like, "Oh boy!" I was like, "Oh boy, indeed." I made contact once, and it was a nubber foul ball at best. Like, it was definitely not well hit, and so I quickly said, "All right, next time I'm gonna tone it down." I did the 40 miles an hour, which was probably a little too slow, and I also wore myself out swinging the bat, but I at least hit the ball. And, and then I used my last 2 tokens at the 50 mile an hour one, which is probably the right speed for, like, batting practice. And now my forearms are sore, and my back is sore, and my right oblique is sore because I'm out of shape. And that was something else. And probably need to get back in the cage because I wasn't squaring much up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm still not happy with the miniature golf hole that had the fish on it. I hit the ball right down the middle of the fish, and it was just like, nope, kick it out to the side. Right after you hit the ball right down the middle of the fish and it went straight toward the hole, mine just veered to the right.
Well, you hit like the back leg of him or the little thing that he was sitting on or something.
It's unbelievable. Dumb fish in there.
But yeah, it was a cool spot. They also had basketball hoops and courts and stuff for people to play on. Had some snack shacks and other things you could go do. Cornhole. It was a nice little spot. And then we went over to right next door, which was where the Altoona Curve play. They're a Pirates affiliate. They were playing the Harrisburg Senators, who I believe are a Nats affiliate.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the Altoona Curve won. It was a miserable night for the scorekeeper, given all the toot blands and errors that were going on. Especially like it was unconventional stuff. Like at one point, the center fielder caught a fly ball at the warning track, but then he bobbled up the transfer, and it squirted away from him. So on the field, it looked like he just dropped the ball. And then the runners advanced, so it was ruled an error, but the batter was called out because it was ruled a catch. And I was like, well, how the hell you ruled that? And the guys moved up, and it was just, oh my god, it was very much a minor league baseball game. But the Curve won, I think 7-4 over the Senators.
That's a good question.
You have the
Something
book.
like that.
And we were there.
I haven't completed the scorecard, but it's.
Evan was sitting there amongst a bunch of these pasty Caucasoids watching this baseball game. And that was also noticeable. I noticed that immediately. I was like, Evan's the only black guy here.
I was the only person of color, I think, who had ever been to Altoona, Pennsylvania. 7-4 the final. Oh my God. I thought, I've been a lot of places, right? Like I thought it was like super white in, I mean, where was I? Maybe I can't even remember where I was, but like, you know, it's it was shocking to even me. And I grew up in Howard County, Maryland, where, it's one of the wealthiest counties in the whole country and stuff. And I'm like, there's no people of color here at all, except the players and myself. People of any race, right? Not just black people, just anybody of anything. It was stunning. But that's fine. It's minor league baseball in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. I can't say I expected otherwise. But still had fun. Love watching baseball. Our tickets were right behind home plate, and they cost $15 because that's minor league baseball for you. We had a great view of the Skyliner. So y'all out there have probably seen that minor league ballpark with the roller coaster just beyond the right field wall. That is in Altoona, Pennsylvania. And you should check it out. It was a fun time. It was fireworks night. I noticed they were watering down the roller coaster before the fireworks started. Thought that was kind of funny. They also had a promotion, or one of those between inning silly games where two people each fill their mouth up with water and then slap each other back and forth with a tortilla. And if somebody spits out their water, they lose. I'd never seen that before.
That was a new one.
Yeah. What? Yeah. So, but yeah, I had a great time. I had an absolutely great time. Took a bunch of pictures. Would do it again. It was a relatively inexpensive Saturday outing. Considering how much money we spent at Kings Island this year, for example, not including park admission, right? Definitely recommend Lakemont Park to anybody who just wants to just get out right quick.
Well, places that we wouldn't recommend, but I still visited, was Six Flags America.
Why? Why would you do this to yourself?
Gotta get the credits, man.
Got to get those creds, man.
Gotta get the creds. I'm up to 112 coasters now because of this. I went over there and I rode. The first one I saw was the Raging Cajun, which is the Spinning Wild Mouse, which was probably the best new ride that I had done over there. Well, it definitely was because the other two sucked. So I got on that and I was like, okay, this isn't a bad start to the day. And then I didn't know really where any of the stuff was. I haven't been to Six Flags America in like 20 years. But then I peeked over when I was at the top of the hill on the Raging Cajun. I saw this big ass orange roller coaster, and I was like, "That's probably the Firebird. I'm gonna go over there next." And I got on that, and you're lucky I'm here today, because that could have put me into concussion protocol real easy. That ride sucked ass. Just, oh my god, I cannot be more emphatic on how much that ride sucked. I can't believe that's a thing. Like, are you kidding me? And they put that there in like 2012. Like, they moved it from somewhere else, from some godforsaken place, and dropped it in Six Flags America, and they treated it like it was some hot attraction. They had switchbacks out the wazoo in case people wanted to ride this piece of crap. And oh my god, it was so bad. Like, it had no intensity, and yet still somehow managed to rattle my brain. Like, it didn't make any sense at all. There was no speed. The drop was weak, and yet the stupid head pads or whatever that almost ensure that you're going to get a head injury. I'm like, it's not just hitting me in like the side of the head or the temple. It was like hitting me in the back part of the head, like rabbit punching me. And I'm like, dude, I'm getting a little woozy here from this stupid roller coaster. It was just absolute garbage. Just a miserable experience on that one. That was a check the box and move on. Never getting on that thing again. That was a harrowing tale for any coaster enthusiast. I would highly recommend maybe you pass on getting that credit and just do something else. Then I was a glutton for punishment, so the Roar was right next door, so I hopped on that as a nostalgia trip. And it wasn't as bad as I had thought. I I know that they had retracted it recently, so it was a little bit smoother probably than the experience that Evan had last year when he rode it.
That's not the.
I
white
thought I
wooden
separated
coaster,
my
is it?
shoulder.
It's the brown one. The wild one's the white wooden coaster.
Oh, okay.
I didn't ride that one today.
Had you been on it before?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like the wild one. I remember that one from when I was younger.
Yeah, I did. I was done, but when I walked past it, I was like, I don't think so. I'm getting out of here. So then I went to. After that, I went to Joker's Jinx, which was enjoyable. I thought the launch was a little weak, certainly weaker than I remember. Probably after riding stuff like Velocicoaster and Accelerator and King Ka, you get a Storm Runner. Those are much better launches, but I thought that the design was pretty good. It had a lot of head choppers and stuff like that, so it definitely had some visual elements that were pretty cool, and it was a smooth ride, so I wouldn't mind getting on that one again, although of course, at Six Flags America, the crew was a little nonchalant getting you through there, even though there's only like 10 people in the entire line. But yeah, that was fine, and then I went over to Superman, and it was okay, as usual. Not a whole lot of airtime on it, especially given the fact that it's 200-foot drop and had some really big hills. You would expect to be flying over those things, but not really. But it had some speed. Those circular bank turns that they had there towards the middle part of the coaster were a lot of fun, and you got a little bit of action there at the end. But I didn't feel compelled to ride it again, especially because they were only running one train, and it was taking them forever to get anybody on the train in the first place. I was like, I need to go do a podcast soon, and I've got one more crappy ride to ride before I get out of here, which I had to go find in like the Looney Tunes land or whatever, called what was it called? The Great Chase? Is that what that piece of junk is called? And I misinterpreted Evan's recommendation to ride on the left side of the coaster.
The left.
I talked because I saw the message of the early part of the day that I was there, and I thought he said right side of the coaster because you don't want to slam into the sidewall of the car. And I was like, yeah. I looked at the right. I was like, yeah, it has to be the right side because otherwise I would slam into the sidewall. Well, apparently I wanted to slam into the sidewall because that would be better than slamming into the median beam they had there that's supposed to separate two riders. My left thigh is in a little bit of pain. That ride sucked, and they sent it around 3 times. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I figured it was going to go around twice because it's a really short ride, like, Harley Quinn's Crazy Train. And then it was suddenly the third time we're going up the hill again. I was like, get me out of here. And this little girl was in front of me, and I think she knew that I was suffering back there because she turned around and she gave me like a sheepish smile at the end of the ride, and I kind of said, yeah, that sucked. And after that, I got the hell up out of there. I mean, just beyond the fact that the rides are mediocre at best and terrible at worst, the place has no vibe. There's no spirit there. It's depressing. It has the same tone and tenor of an abandoned park. Like, it's just nobody is happy to be there. The workers aren't happy to be there. There might be some kids buzzing around, but there aren't even that many of them. There's just no life there.
They don't know better.
It's a shame that park is as crappy as it is, especially given the fact that it's only 20 minutes away from my house and that it's in a pretty big, bustling area. I mean, PG County's got plenty of kids that would love to go to a good amusement park that's not 2 hours away, but the one they got is a piece of crap. So, thumbs down to Six Flags America. I don't think I'm shocking anybody when I say that, but I did collect my 3 creds, so there you go.
Yeah. Firebird was relocated from Six Flags Great America in like 2017 or something, and they tried to market it as a new ride. I'm like, this thing's terrible. So like the spot at Great America was replaced with a RMC called Goliath, which is amazing. But Six Flags regular America gets that piece of crap. I mean, Six Flags America, the land would be better used as an apartment complex, right? Just knock it down and move on. Ugh. I mean, all
uses just a parking lot.
Yeah, or a parking lot. Yeah, just put a metro station there or something, or just replant all the trees and just have it be a forest. Just terrible, right? Just these torture contraptions. Superman and Joker's Jinx are pretty good. Everything else is terrible. Raging Cajun's pretty good too, and Wadman. But it's a bottom heavy lineup, and the bottom is really deep and really wide. As Eric explained on Firebird. Yeah, I mean, it's in the running for the worst roller coaster in the world, but it's also only arguably the worst roller coaster at that park. Like, how is that possible? That's how you know your rides are bad. When, the worst ride in the whole world might not be the worst ride at your park. Because there's so much other garbage.
You also know your rides are bad when you go over there and it's still summertime in a very populous area and there's nobody there. Like, that park was empty. And as I mentioned to Evan, I took a peek over at Batwing while I was riding Superman, and that ride looks like it's toast. Like, there's nobody over there even thinking about operating that ride. I don't even know if you told me it hadn't run all summer, I wouldn't be shocked. Like, it was always a piece of crap when it opened. Required a ton of maintenance. Mm-hmm. It was a boring ride anyway, and I can't imagine it's gotten better in 20 years, especially at a park that, Six Flags has its own issues going on right now. They certainly couldn't care less about Six Flags America because that place is just an absolute dump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so now you don't ever need to go back there until they add a new coaster in, 10,000 years or so.
Even then, is it really worth it?
I still want the creds.
You rode the kiddie coaster and that one hurt. I told you got to sit on the left, right? Because it's gonna slam your body around. But if you get slammed into something that's wider, like the side of the car, it's not gonna hurt as much as getting slammed into a 2-inch diameter metal rod.
Yeah, I misinterpreted the. I took a glance at the message.
Misinterpreted the rules.
Yes, and I even, as I was trying to read and go back through the chat to see what Evan said specifically right before I got on it, but it was time to get on it, so I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure he said this, and I was like, he couldn't have possibly said that because that was terrible. So, yeah.
You didn't learn from Coco Cruiser?
I barely remember Coco Cruiser.
Oh, it's the same ride as Coco Cruiser. And you and Sean were complaining about getting slammed into the metal bar. I'm like, you have to sit on the left side, so you get slammed into the wall instead.
Either way, it doesn't sound great.
Yeah.
Well, that's the extent of our topics. Any breaking news or anything you guys want?
Yankees are up 2-1 in the 6th inning.
So I got a little bit of news here about our old buddy Fernando Tatis Jr. He has apparently opted to have surgery on his shoulder that had been plaguing him last year. He's had recurring injuries, but he's always decided to rest and rehabilitate it because surgery would obviously result in him missing significantly more time. But now he's got nothing but time because, well, he ain't playing baseball.
But
so
won't the suspension pause while he's recovering and then resume, or will that actually continue through his recovery?
I think the Padres
would have to.
I think they would have to put him on IL in order for that to pause his suspension. I don't know. They could just say he's not hurt. He'd be loopy and have a surgically repaired shoulder recovering and just be like, but he would have played today if he wasn't suspended. Okay. Either way, it's probably a smart move long term for him anyway. Yeah. I mean, I stand by the fact that it derailed their season last year when he re-aggravated that injury in early August, had to move to the outfield. Yeah. That sent the Padres on a downward spiral. So I think it's a good move for him whenever he gets back. And, of course, we've talked about his other issues plenty. So hopefully he can work both of those things out when we next see him sometime in May or June of 2023. So that's going to do it for the show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. You can find this podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts. And if you have a particular podcatcher that you prefer to find us on, please feel free to let us know. You can do that and give us feedback on our shows at thesportsballers@gmail.com. Feel free, especially with football season coming up, to contribute to our mailbag. Ask questions, give feedback, criticize us, tell us we're stupid if you want to. We don't care. We just like to hear from people. We're nice guys like that. You can also follow us on Twitter at SportsBallers18. You can follow us individually as well. Corey is at Corey Puffett. I am at Quagmire67. And Evan is at Evan_Ash13. So before we get rolling here and finishing up episode 206, do you guys have any shout-outs?
I mean, shout out the workers, all these places we went. Lakemont Park people, the guy manually stopping the coaster on the wood brakes, for example.
He was very proud of
putting
himself
up-
because he had like a six coaster streak where he successfully stopped the car. So that was
Yeah,
nice.
sometimes he didn't stop it, actually. Like, it just scooted right on through. So, and then all the people working at, was it P&G Park or something? I don't know. It's a curve game, yeah. And shout out to you, Eric, for driving. Because I was feeling... I was tired when we got done.
Shout out to Rich Blorstad. He and I are the co-leaders of Amico House. So those who don't know, DeMatha about 6-ish years ago instituted a house system similar to Harry Potter, and you got all of those houses and the sorting hat and everything. So students get sorted into houses every year. We got 5 of them, unlike Harry Potter has 4. But we are co-leaders of Amico House. We won the title last year, and we are already off to the lead in house points this year. So we're trying for that two-peat, Evan.
God.
And then also shout out to Hard Knocks. I mean, every year, they kind of suck me into the story of these teams. It doesn't matter who the team is; it just seems to suck me in. A few years back, when they did their series on the Raiders, I actually started considering, if I actually give up on the Washington team, maybe I'll pick up the Raiders. I'm glad that I didn't, because not that long after that was the whole John Gruden saga. And that would have been rather frustrating to have to give up on a second team so soon. But I really
Give up on them right away.
Right, exactly. But I've really enjoyed the storylines and kind of. I think that they've really done a good job of picking teams that have interesting people involved. So they had the Chargers and the Rams is like a dual coverage a couple years ago, but the Chargers side was the one that really I kind of enjoyed the most, especially because I was going into Justin Herbert's rookie year and just kind of seeing what he was doing, and then last year even with the Cowboys, I'm not really a Cowboys fan, I never have been, and even with me not being a Washington fan anymore, it's kind of hard for me to root for the Cowboys, but it was cool to see them and see Dak coming back from his injury, and now this year. Anybody who listens to the podcast last year knows that I don't have a whole lot of nice things to say about Dan Campbell's coaching ability, but my God, if he's not a good person, or at least does a really good job of portraying one, and I love his coaching staff. I honestly, at this point, I have not settled on a team to be my team going forward. I think I might just go with whoever the preseason Hard Knocks team is every year and just root for them for the season.
Oh, jeez.
It's gonna be a little bit painful probably to root for the Lions this year, because they probably aren't gonna do that well. But I like them. I like the coaching staff. I like a lot of the players.
Lions.
If you haven't seen it, you got to watch the first couple episodes. The first episode had a really impassioned speech by Jamal Williams, who used to be in the Packers backfield with Aaron Jones, and now is in Detroit. But I'm looking forward to, once we wrap up this podcast, I'm going to go to HBO Max. I'm going to watch this week's episode.
Nice. So just
The
a little
Lions.
breaking news. The Mets have tied the game against the Yankees. It's 2-2. Sorry to throw that in your face right before we get out of here, Corey. So sorry, guys. We promised it would be under an hour. Actually, we didn't promise anything, but we are at about an hour and 4 minutes. But it's time for us to get out of here. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will have a fantasy football preview for you next week. So tune in for that. If you want to win your league, or I don't know, we're probably not going to help you win, but you can try, and maybe we'll help you. I don't know. You got 3 champions here, so trust us. That's true. We are all certified champions of our league, which is a dope league. So don't be hating. So don't you forget it. We know what we're talking
Your
about.
boy is the reigning champ, by the way.
Yes,
I
is.
have
got the belt.
championship belt on hand.
Yes, sir. So thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you next week.